Oh, that is a fishing rod. Can I pick it up? I can. There's a Pokeball in here. Oh shit. Oh shit. I'm not swimming in that anymore. Also, he stole my Pokeball. Hey everyone. As always, Jarek here. Now, there's a lot of channels on YouTube focusing on 90s retro shooters, and I like myself a boomer shooter every once in a while, but that's not really what I focus on, nor is that my favorite era in video games. No, my favorite era in video games is what I call the Half-Life era. 90s was all about Doom and Duke Nukem and Quake, but once Half-Life 1 came out, it changed first-person shooters forever. From 1998 till around 2007, we saw some of my favorite games of all time. Half-Life, Fear, Halo, these are my games. And it's a shame that we don't see many of them anymore. So when one pops up, it's just like a dream for me. Vertigo Remastered is exactly that. I've been describing this game as the Half-Life game you've never played. However, as my good old buddy old pal Adam Karras said while I was streaming, this is like Half-Life but with the tone of Portal. And that's pretty true. Now, the original Vertigo came out in 2016, and then they remastered the game with new mechanics and overall gave it a massive update for Vertigo Remastered, which came out in 2020. Which begs the question, why the hell did I not hear of this game? This game is exactly what I love to focus on this channel, and I kind of assume this video is going to get less views just off the art style and the graphical presentation, and that's a shame, because this is genuinely not just one of the best hidden gems I've played, but one of the best games I've ever played. But before I explain why, we need to thank today's sponsor. Skillshare is an online learning community for people who like to be creative, where millions come together to learn how to improve their creative expression. Skillshare has thousands of classes for people who are creative and curious. There's topics on illustration, design, photography, videos, freelancing, and many more. So Skillshare is for the curious person that wants to learn more. If you're anything like me, you have a hobby you've been putting off getting into for a long time, and Skillshare can help with that. Skillshare has plenty of classes for all skill levels that will fit your schedule. Most are under 60 minutes, and members get unlimited access to the site. The class I want to share with you today is Bring Your Illustrations to Life with Blender 3D by Remington Marquand. The reason I chose this class is because I'm sure many of you watching me are wanting to get into video game development. This class is a great place to start. Blender is a great program that you can use for free, and this class is aimed at beginners. Whether or not you decide this is for you or not, you will end up getting the experience of using a 3D program. Or maybe you don't even want to get into video game development. Maybe you're an artist. You just want to express what's on your mind and get that out to the internet. I know I love coming across fan art that is just 3D models of franchises I love. Or maybe you have a quote-unquote more practical use for this, like you want to add it into VR chat, have your own model to use for whatever purpose. So hey, if you want to try out Skillshare, the first 1,000 subscribers that click that link below get a 1-month free trial of premium membership. And as always, a huge thanks goes to Skillshare. I love what they do. I guess we'll start with the graphics, because if you just look at this game at a glance, you might assume it's for kids, or it's nice, or it's trying to be cute, or something, but that is not the case. Yes. The cube face had an asshole. It laid eggs. Square eggs. Oh, yeah, I... Why are they fleshy on the inside? Hold up, what the fuck? This abomination can't exist. We can't have more. Now, while yes, this game does not push your computer graphically, it's not any new tech we haven't seen before, it's not Half-Life Alyx levels of photorealism, but that's fine, that's okay. The aesthetic is highly stylized and consistent throughout the whole game. It's a very immersive game. It leaves you curious. You want to know what the hell is happening. I'll talk more about this when I get to the story. One of the biggest upsides about taking this graphical approach is the impact it will have on your computer. Basically none. And that's really important when it comes to VR. VR is very intensive on your computer, so if you have a lower spec PC, you should be able to run this game perfectly fine. I just upgraded from a Samsung Odyssey Plus to a Valve Index. My Odyssey Plus was dying, I figured I could justify spending a lot of money on a better headset. I love this thing, it is a huge upgrade, but it also gives me the ability to play at 144 Hz. And I never drop below that frame rate while playing this game. So how does the VR itself control, and how does it feel? Well, it's interesting. It's kind of an in-between of Half-Life Alyx and Boneworks. Now, Half-Life Alyx is a fantastic game, but I'm a little disappointed with it on the VR side. I feel like it didn't push VR as much as it could. There's no melee weapons, there's no two-handed weapons, you can't climb on anything, you can't even jump, you're just a floating pair of hands and a headset. Meanwhile, in Boneworks, they just go all in. There's melee weapons, two-handed weapons, you can jump, you can climb on absolutely anything. This feels more like a linear game, but with the options of a sandbox game. The best way I can describe it is that Half-Life Alyx is the better video game, but Boneworks is the better VR game. And again, to clarify, Half-Life Alyx is an amazing game. Every time I say this, especially in my Boneworks video, I get a bunch of Half-Life Alyx fanboys that get super upset at me. It's almost like they think I'm calling their child ugly or something. Although maybe their children are. Vertigo Remastered doesn't go as far as Boneworks, but it's not as simple as Half-Life Alyx. You do have an upward torso, but you don't have legs. The first time I played through the game, I actually didn't notice this, because when you look down, you see boobs. Unless you're walking, it's not something you would have noticed, or unless you look in a mirror. It actually also solved a problem I had in Boneworks. In Boneworks, my arms in real life were longer than my arms in the game. I could solve this by making myself taller in game, but then there would be a disconnect between my height in real life and my height in game, so that's an even worse solution. The result is that since my arms reach further in real life than in game, I would come up short when I try to hit a button or when I'm trying to do anything in melee combat. Vertigo solved this problem in a very simple way. When you reach your arms out, and if they're longer than the character's arms just stretch. Yeah, it looks weird, but as you're playing, you're not going to notice this, and it's better than your arms just not reaching when they should have. Other than that, this game does do a lot of things that Half-Life Alyx didn't do. There are melee weapons, there are two-handed weapons, and you can jump. The jumping honestly isn't as good as Boneworks. In Boneworks, when you go to jump, your character squats down and then jumps up. It feels natural, but in Vertigo Remastered, when you jump, it's just a sudden leap upward. This was a little disorienting and can feel kinda bad, although it never made me feel sick. I definitely see why it's turned off by default and you have to turn jumping on. If this does make you sick, the good news is that you could just use the portal device to not ever have to jump. So it's not a mandatory thing at all. In fact, the game was not designed with jumping in mind. So Vertigo Remastered is in an interesting place. It didn't take the Half-Life Alyx approach where they intentionally made the game easy to be that first VR game you pick up, so they didn't really want to experiment that much, but it also isn't just diving full in like Boneworks did. It's somewhere in between. Alright, and now we move on to the story, and there is a lot to talk about here, and I still don't entirely know what the hell happened, but I say that in a good way. This game starts with what is supposed to be a getaway to a cabin in the forest, only for you to fall into an interdimensional rift, just for this guy to show up. This game's weird. Next thing you know, you're taking some sort of handheld portal device from a dude that portaled himself into a wall.
All right, here goes nothing. Ah! Oh my God! Ah!
And then you scare the ever-living shit out of this robot.
They said this guy was last logged being in this lab, but I couldn't get in, so I've been waiting here for... oh, it's been 450 days now. I suppose it's a bit late for him to evac at this point. Here, let me check your credentials. No disrespect intended, just protocol after all. Oh, cripes. You're not an employee. You're an alien from an exoproximal, aren't you? Listen, I'm unarmed. Please don't kill me. Do they have the concept of mercy in your universe? Just stay calm, okay? So security.
From this point on, your goal is to get to the surface and to avoid all of these aliens while seemingly everything wants to kill you. I wasn't kidding when I said this game is basically Half-Life. This game is immersive and incredibly confusing in such a captivating way. But like I said, it doesn't quite have a Half-Life tone to it. It's not like survival horror. No, it's more of a Portal tone. Some of the things you hear in this facility are just so goofy.
There are no trees in the facility. If you see what appears to be a tree, stay low to the ground. Retreat slowly and contact your supervisor.
Now we move on to the gameplay, and it takes its blueprint straight from Half-Life. This game is a linear, scripted, immersive first-person shooter. However, it does so in a way that doesn't feel like the player is being forced into any specific playstyle or forced to go a specific way. It lets the player progress at their own pace, which is really important. This is not the kind of scripted that Call of Duty is. This is the kind of scripted that you won't notice while you're playing. Every chapter has its own gimmick and almost its own storyline. Again, very similar to that of, say, Half-Life 2, where every chapter they're giving you some new toy or something different. You just got that gravity gun? Well, now you got Ravenholm, an entire place made just to use the gravity gun. But you don't have to if you don't want to, you can still shoot them. In Vertigo Remastered, you just got this lightsaber-looking melee weapon? Well, fight a boss where you have to reflect projectiles back at that boss and turn it into Star Wars. It gives the player ample time to understand the new gimmick or new weapon the game has thrown at them, but it also does it in a way that you don't even realize the game is doing that. It's intuitive and it flows naturally. I can't imagine the amount of playtesting they had to put into this game. Sometimes it has shades of Half-Life 1. Like, for example, this eyeball thing. I need to quickly back up before that because its introduction is quite amusing. They're named, and one got loose. It's Frank. It's always Frank. Anyway, yeah, this thing. Effectively, you're playing the floor is lava, which I usually hate, but this game manages to do it in a way that's not irritating as hell. This black goo is death. Your goal here is to traverse pathways along the goo to get to rocket launchers on top of these towers. While this is happening, this eyeball thing is launching black mortar shots at you. However, these are obviously not hit scan, and they make a loud whistling noise so that even if you're not looking at it, you know you have a projectile headed your way. All while you're traveling along, these tentacle things are constantly trying to attack you. Occasionally you need to stop and swat them away with a gun just so you can continue. Once you get to one of these towers, you will shoot a rocket at the enemy. Standing in this tower makes the player feel safe. The window can't break so you can see what you've just done, the projectiles cannot hit you, and those weird tentacle things can't attack you while you're in it. This lets the player see that the actions you did had an impact on the enemy. The second thing this does is that the player is going to intentionally seek out this safe space while focusing on the boss. And while this is happening, a tentacle will come up in front of your view and start pulling the tower down. So now the player has a sense of urgency. You need to keep moving forward, and they know that the tower is going down. Also, occasionally while you're trying to get to the next tower, this eyeball will put out a tsunami of black goo. This always happens at a certain point when you progressed far enough to give you a place to climb higher to avoid it. Again, all of this stuff is incredibly scripted. However, when you're playing through it, you won't even notice. It's scripted in a way to make the player look at something very specific so that they don't die. This boss also has the added benefit of letting you continue to use this portal device, which you will use throughout the entire game. A portal device could be very tricky in VR, as it seems like it might make you sick. However, it doesn't make me sick at all in this game, because the way it works is that you simply point at where you want to teleport to, hold down the trigger, and then pull the portal over you. You don't move while you're teleporting, but you can still teleport. And again, it's the first thing you will be getting in this game, and you will be using it all the way to the end. This boss, by all means, has the ability to be incredibly annoying, to feel like it's trial and error. However, I've had numerous friends play this game and none of us ran into that situation. And again, this is exactly the level of polish that we see in games like Half-Life. And I can't imagine the amount of playtesting they had to do to make it run this smoothly. Bosses like this remind me more of Half-Life 1, and those are my favorite moments in Half-Life 1. Chapters like Blast Pit and Power Up, where you have to get by Peck Beast and Fire Crab. My point being is that they are fun, they are weird, they're captivating, and they're very rewarding. Half-Life is a linear first-person shooter done right, and this game has learned everything correct from Half-Life. And this continues throughout the entire game. You'll always be seeing something new. For example, in a later chapter, you get shrunk, and now you're playing Duke Nukem. This stays for a while too. It's not just some offhand gimmick, this is a full chapter. And right at the end of the game, they give you a minigun for that chapter. This is the Power of Fantasy chapter. You fought through the whole facility. You've been struggling. Aliens, robots, everything has been hunting you down. And now you turn it around. This is very similar to the final chapter in Half-Life 2 where you suddenly get the souped up gravity gun and can just murder everyone without thought. Yeah, a minigun isn't exactly original, but it is immensely satisfying given the context. But most importantly for these chapters, they exist to answer questions that the game will naturally bring up. For example, what the hell are these tiny creatures? They're weird and bizarre. Well, in the chapter where you get shrunk down, that answers that question. At least how they're reproducing, where they're coming from, and why there are so many of them. I won't spoil it, but that's your answer. However, it leaves open questions to let your mind think, like what universe are they from? What's their home world like? Does that sound familiar? It's exactly like Half-Life 1. And lastly, I have to talk about the weapons, because they're pretty ingenious. Now, they're all laser-based weapons, which you might be a little disappointed by and think they're not as satisfying as quote-unquote real guns. You know what I mean? However, the weapons are pretty satisfying to use, especially since there is an upgrade system. Now, the upgrade system is simple and easy to understand, as they should be. I don't like deep, confusing RPG skill trees in my first-person shooters. Anyway, you find this orange glue, you pause the game, you go to upgrades, and here you go. These upgrades range from faster projectile speed to faster walk speed to longer teleport range to faster teleport speed. Eventually, your weapons are doing a lot more damage, and you even get explosive rounds when you're fully upgraded. It makes you want to explore the environment and find everything weird that the devs have intentionally placed. It also made me feel really overpowered because, as I found out, if you start a new game, you keep all your upgrades, and I wouldn't advise that because, man, that makes the game way too easy. I mean, I probably just could have put it on hard mode. I probably should have done that. Yeah, I would recommend doing that instead. None of the guns in this game have to be manually reloaded. They will overheat, and then you press a button to cool them down. This kind of works like the plasma repeater in Halo Reach. This effectively functions as a reload without you having to go through the actions of reloading. This is smart because you can dual wield in this game, and dual wielding while reloading in VR is a bit of a mess. Either you break immersion by putting your hands at your waist and the guns just reload for you, or you go through the clunky habit of having to holster a weapon, reload one, then holster that weapon and reload the other. In this game, you never had to deal with that. You just press a button, the guns cool down, you can keep shooting. Either that or the weapon has one of the coolest, most satisfying reload animations I've ever seen. And this gun is so cool. Like, that animation is just so smooth. Hey, I got an achievement for that. The weapon roster is pretty basic. You got your lightsaber baton thing that can reflect back lasers and launch people. You have a semi-automatic pistol. You have an assault rifle, which can also be turned into a sniper, which is pretty cool. You get that minigun at the end, and of course you have the portal device. That said, when they released Vertigo Remastered, they also released DLC, which added a good 3 or 4 guns to the base campaign. So I would highly advise you get the DLC. This DLC didn't just do that. If it just did that, it would be a little scummy, but it added in a sandbox mode, which is pretty cool. People have made a bunch of different maps, and you can just continue playing the game. I mean, I've come across ridiculous stuff like Mario maps in here. Never underestimate players. I'm gonna stop myself here. If this video is feeling more rambly than usual, it'll probably end up fine after I edit it. This game is genuinely one of the best games I've played, and if you have a VR headset, I would highly advise you play it. In fact, I would consider it a must-play. Now, would I say it's better than Half-Life Alyx or Boneworks? No. But I would say it's the lower end of that tier. In fact, I think a tier list is just kind of a better way to judge VR games than a random score attached to the game. So for me, in the sort of S tier of VR games, you have Boneworks, Half-Life Alyx, Vertigo Remastered, Into the Radius, which I haven't covered. I will eventually. It is genuinely a really good game. It's literally Stalker VR. You could argue H3VR being here. I would put it in the tier below. I just kind of see it as a glorified shooting range, and I want a little bit more out of my game. So I'd put H3VR in the fun tier along with games like, say, Zero Caliber. Below that, you have mediocre games like, say, Sniper Elite VR. And below that, you got garbage like Medal of Honor. So yes, I do think this highly of this game. I consider it a must play. I've already gotten numerous of my friends to play it before I even made a video of it. Vertigo 2 is in the works, and it's been in the works for many years now. However, the dev has recently posted footage and it just looks great. It's looking more like Half-Life while still keeping the good parts of Vertigo Remastered, which is not a bad thing. It also seems to have its own great music, which Vertigo Remastered also had amazing music. I forgot to mention that, but it's been playing in the background this whole time. I'm sure you've heard it. It also kept the really weird creatures, which makes me happy. In general, this is one of those games I'm really looking forward to. I don't know when it's coming out. It's kind of just been a when it's done situation, but I have it wishlisted on Steam and I'll probably make a video of it. So okay, that should be the end of this video. A big thanks goes to people that joined me while I stream this game over to Twitch. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Jarek4GameDragon. If you subscribe, you get to see my videos ahead of time. A big thanks also goes to my sponsor, Skillshare. Again, the first 1,000 subscribers that click the link below get a 1-month free trial of premium membership. And as always, thank you for watching this video.